Okay, guys, welcome to today's episode of Empowering Coffee Convos. I'm Jessi, the founder and chief empowerment officer of This Way to Fabulous. And today is super exciting. I'm here with Monika Bhondy, and she is a luxury Chicagoland real estate who's also certified in luxury home marketing, which is really cool. She does staging and as well as pricing advisory. So Monika is a $1 Million Guild awardee, which is like super huge, right? And self-professed stylista. Okay, she attributes her biggest success to being a mama to the cutest little boy. You guys know that I am team boy mom, so I love that. So before we start, Monika, why don't you tell everyone a little bit about yourself? Maybe just like a quick synopsis of like where you're at right now.
Oh, where I'm at right now. So living, working in the Chicagoland area. Again, like, mom, juggling momhood, juggling being a boss mom, all of that good stuff. So working and living the dream with my son and my family and juggling it all, really.
Yeah, and I feel for you, and I know a lot of other people will feel for you too, because this is something that I feel like as women in business, it's something we think about all the time, right? Like it's constantly staring at us in the face. But
Right.
What I think is that there is this huge lack of like actually acknowledging it and actually talking about it and actually bringing it to light that like it's not easy. People look and they see and they're like, gosh, you have it all figured out. Like, how do you do it? And you're sitting there like, that you think this looks together, right? Like every mom in business is like secretly hustling to make it look like it's easy. And that's something I'll get to later, because I feel like that's also something that society is sort of built in us to sort of like never show how hard it is, make it look great. And with social media, that's a whole nother level of like, just like that worry of like, what does this look like? And I'm here to like break all that, because I think it's just all such bullshit. So, okay, so Monika, why don't we kind of dive in here a little bit? Okay, so let's backtrack for you a little bit. What big thing came first for you? Was it motherhood or was it like building a career?
Well, it would have been the career first off, because I mean, I didn't get into mommy mode until later on in my life, to be honest with you.
Okay.
I started working and doing the whole hustle scenario way earlier on. I mean, I've been working in the service industry for like over 20 plus years. So I didn't meet my Mr. Right until I was in my mid-30s. So that motherhood came like way later, so career was first for me. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And you said multiple, like you talked a little bit about like multiple careers. So let's dig a little bit deeper in there. I want to know a little bit about more about the journey of these multiple, these multiple things that got you here. Like what is kind of your backstory?
Well, I mean, I'm a born Brit Asian to immigrant parents who, growing up my whole life, they've been business owners. So seeing that like work ethic and that, having an intimate relationship with their entrepreneurialism, I mean, it has an effect on you, right? Whether you like it or not, what your parents do does have an impact. So I think growing up with that over my life, and they've moved around a lot, I've moved around a lot. Coming from Canada, well, the UK, obviously you can tell from my accent, UK to Canada to then the US, because I married an American. I've learned through them like the lesson of pivoting, and you technically have your day job, and then there's always like that side hustle. For me, it became my side hustle was my passion, which later became my full-time career once I moved. So, I mean, yeah, like going back a bit, let's say I started off as a hygienist. And then from there, when I met my hubby, I was juggling careers and having my side hustle. I was really big on the social media scene at the time. And then when I moved out here, to, you know, get married to my hubby, that became my full-time gig because it was something that I didn't need a license. I had the experience, and it was my passion that became my full-time gig. And I learned a lot of managerial skills through that. So, you know, editorials, the event space, fashion and style. And again, you know, the whole fashion and style aspect kind of wrote me into the whole real estate scenario. My husband, he has his own brokerage. So I was around that at the time, seeing what he was doing, and really fell in love with the idea of, you know, building these lovely dream homes and making them, you know, sparkle and stuff. So that really tied in for me. And hence here I am, like the whole world of pivoting and juggling, you know, what would work for your lifestyle at that time. Like, I feel that today we're in an era that, you know, that one job that you start off in your 20s doesn't necessarily go with you all the way till you retire, right? Like our parents' generation had that. But today I feel that, you know, you always, every X amount of years, you know, something happens, economy or whatnot, and you end up changing your careers, and learning to pivot and learning to go with the tide. That's what really my parents taught me. And I think that's what stuck with me, really, to be honest.
Yeah, for sure. And I think I'm like writing things down because I'm like, as you're saying these things, I have so many like things that come up for me with this. So the first thing being, yes, like the way you're raised absolutely plays a role in the way you view everything, the way you view yourself, the way you view the world, the way you view your job, the way you view success. I mean, whether you like it or not, that was absolutely instilled with you from when you were a kid. Now, I think it's also a choice that we can make as adults to sort of change that path a little bit, to sort of redesignate those priorities and reassess, you know, that maybe that doesn't work for me, you know, like that it's not, you know, you mentioned, you know, you don't have to start your job in your 20s and stay there forever. Well, guess what? A lot of us grew up that way, where our parents are, my dad has been working for United Airlines since I was born, because that generation has such a different viewpoint of like your career and being successful and being loyal. Like they view those things as part of staying with a job forever, whether you like it or not. And that, to me, I think that we're blessed to be in a time of life where we can change that. We can rewrite the narrative for ourselves, right? And I think that's also something that is not talked about enough, because so many people are so worried about what their parents think about what they're doing, or they're so worried about what that older generation thinks about what we're doing. And it's sad. I mean, it's really sad to see some people feel like stuck in a job because they feel like they have to be there. And that for me is just like, it's gut wrenching for me, because it's just like, I want to shake people sometimes and be like, you don't have to stay here. Like, you have a choice.
And like learning new skills. I mean, what's wrong with that, right? The more you garner, the more things that you can offer.
Totally.
So I think that's so important.
Totally. And you mentioned, you know, like exposure. So like your husband and his brokerage, that gave you exposure to a totally different genre, to a totally different market, right? And you're not going to get that exposure unless you put yourself out there, unless you pay attention to who you spend your time with, unless you're willing, like you said, to pivot and learn new skills. Because when you stay at the same job for your entire life, I can't imagine 20 years from now looking back, if I had like one job, I can't imagine looking back and being proud of all of the things I learned along the way, because I feel like there's a cap on what you can learn when you're in the same place, right?
Oh, totally. And then, you know, you get stale, you get bored, or you get complacent, right? Like once you start to think that you're comfortable, that's when things kind of like fall on the wayside. So always, you know, I feel like always being on your toes or learning something new, a new skill. It just elevates you in general, right? Well,
for sure. And I feel like you said something else about, you know, things kind of coming full circle, because were exposed to so many different opportunities that now you're in a position where you've taken a lot of those opportunities and they've all come together. They've come full circle. And like, I am an advocate for that because look at me today. I have been doing design, photography, all these things for 15 years almost. And I am just now in a place where I feel like collectively it makes sense. Collectively it came together full circle, but it never would have if I wouldn't have exposed myself to that, if I wouldn't have tried that, right? So like that brings me to a question for you. So I know we're going to talk about like the meaning of success later, but I want to know what you think failure is. How do you view failure?
What I think failure to me is when you fear things, right? You fear of the unknown and then not going there, not trying things. Like that to me is failure, because trying something, if you don't get it right, what do? You know, there was a lesson that you got from that, and it takes you to another spot and to another spot. So to me, I think failure, it's more of a fear aspect. If I fear something, I won't try it. So to me, that's the biggest, I mean, it's pretty sad, and that's the biggest failure for me. I never want to be at a point where, you know, I'm fearful to try something or do something to better myself, you know?
Absolutely. And I feel like that's such an important point, because I feel like the reality is, and I know people are going to nod their heads to this, but the reality is you're afraid to try, not you, just collectively, like us, like we're afraid to try that next step. We're afraid to try something new. And I feel like a lot of that fear nowadays, especially, comes from what is the world going to think? Because we put everything out in the world, right? Like it's so far past what's my family going to think, what are my parents going to think? Like, stop posting it if you don't want to know what everybody else has to say. But also like, take it as a grain of salt, take it as a lesson, take it as an experience, right? Because I personally would rather take a risk and it fail and learn something from it than to look back and wonder for the rest of my life, what if, like, what would have happened if I would have tried that? That would haunt me. Like that would haunt me in my sleep.
Yeah. I'd rather know than not know.
Absolutely. So in your career, in your journey, what would you say was like the biggest learning experience for you from like that failure standpoint, from that fear standpoint? Like maybe what was the biggest step you took towards fear that now you are like, thank God I did that?
Learning to pivot, like learning to change and trying new things. Because like I said, I mean, I started my journey in the workforce in my early 20s. So when I got married in my mid 30s, and then moving out, it's like you're starting off afresh every time, right? Every single time. So it gets a little trickier because you get set in your ways the older you are. So I think that was my little angst to grind, right? Like starting something new every time. You think it would get easier and easier and easier, but you know, the older you get, the more set in the ways you get, having to push myself and, okay, let's just do it. Let's just go for it. I mean, I have the support system. Let's just try it. So I think that was really it for me, you know, like learning to embrace pivoting and taking the challenge and trying new things.
Yeah. Do you feel like your husband was a helpful factor in that? Or was there anyone else in your life that really helped you sort of like push that, like push back on fear to like go in head first anyway? Like, was there, like, did you do any podcast listening or book reading? Like what really flipped that switch for you where you were like, you know what, screw it. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to see what happens.
I've been really lucky to have strong people in my life. So I've been blessed that way from my parents. Like I said, you know, these entrepreneurial parents of mine that have been working nonstop. Even today, you know, my dad still got his businesses and he's retired. And then my siblings, again, I've got like incredible siblings who are doing wonderful things. And me being the youngest of the girls, I've had these, I guess, women figures that I've seen how, you know, how they've dealt with things and they're all ball busters in their own right. So I worked with one of my sisters, and that's where the media aspect came into it. Like, she's a ball buster in her world. So, and then, you know, my hubby too, he was very supportive. And I think that really helps when you have a partner. I guess that's why I waited so long.
Yeah.
That's the whole other podcast is finding someone who's supportive and really gets you, you know, and waiting for that person. So having all those people in my life, I've been lucky to have really good, positive, inspiring people in my life. So I think that really worked for me.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I think it's really good that you speak to that and that you recognize that, because I think that a lesson that a lot of people can learn is that if you feel exhausted or drained or not energized by the people you spend your time with,
Yeah, you got to
assess that.
Yes.
Assess that. Like, look at
100%.
that.
Yep.
See where you can pivot or make changes to surround yourself by more people who are, you know, like,
get up and goers, do it.
Yes, absolutely.
You know, my girl group, my friend group, they're all like women who are, you know, working in different aspects. So it's like, surround yourself with people in your family, your friends, your peers who inspire you, or just like you get a real, you know, get a real kick out of them. So I think that really,
and like, you're excited to tell them about what you're doing. You're not fearful about telling them and worrying about what they're going to say or what they're going to think. Like, you just gung-ho, like, I am so excited to tell you about this. And then they're excited for you. Like, those are the people that you need in your life to keep you going. Right. And that's a huge part between building this empowerment group for me, was that I wanted to be able to be that person for someone who might need to replace something in their surrounding. They might need to bring a little bit more energy in because they're recognizing that, right?
Wonderful thing that you're doing, girl, because there are people out there are ladies and, you know, men who don't have that support system. They don't have
absolutely
that. Something like this is just,
yeah, absolutely. And like you said, you were blessed into something like that.
I was lucky,
you didn't have to necessarily take extensive measures to find that, to bring that in. You were blessed with it. But the reality of, and the reality of it is that most of us, maybe we have a piece of that, but we've also got a lot in our lives who are the opposite. And it's really hard to realize that and accept that, and it's even harder to do something about that. So if someone that's listening feels like maybe they're part of like that middle ground where like they maybe have a little bit but they need more, what advice would you give for them to enhance that part of their life, to enhance that support system? You know, what would you tell them? Where would you tell them to look?
Oh, I mean, everywhere and everywhere, to be honest with you. So, I mean, first
open your eyes. That's all.
I mean, first of all, look in your sphere. If there's somebody that inspires you, or, you know, you look at them and you're like, wow, they've done really great things with their life. You know, if there's somebody in your group that is like that, I mean, hit them up. You know, go on a coffee date, just soak it all in. If there's somebody in your family, your group of friends, a co-worker, neighbors, you know, whatever it is. I mean, nowadays everything's about all online and, you know, finding I mean, then if you don't have that, obviously, you know, going for the podcasts, finding, you know, a self-help book, whatever it takes to really that inspires you, or you know, you see somebody that's done something great. Like, I read books all the time, you know, like right now in real estate, you know, people have done really, you know, wonderful things. I'll read about, you know, their biographies and stuff, like whatever inspires you. If you don't have that person in front of your face, you know, just to get up and go.
Yeah, for sure. And I feel like it's worth noting because I realize when I say that, I make it could be open for, you know, different meanings. But I will definitely say that for me, before I found this, you know, this path that I'm on now, this full circle path, and I finally feel in alignment, is definitely has to do with the fact that I spent the time investing myself in personal development. Because the reality is we're human and we want to look outward for an answer, for a cure, for a fix, whatever it is. But the reality that I found out was that the fix is more than likely inside of you. The fix is understanding why you think the way you do, why you do the things that you do, and really kind of like reevaluating that. Because that for me was 100% how I finally got back to a place where things came full circle. Things aligned, not because I forced them to, they aligned because like I did the work to figure out what made sense in my life and what I was like, how I was sabotaging myself, and assessing that, like assessing all those things.
Yeah. And did you have someone to like kick you up the butt and say, okay, you know what? Because I mean, sometimes that helps too, right? You've got, I 100% believe in what you just said, that like reevaluating what you've done and how it's brought you about. And then I think it's a bit of both, like having that, and then having that support system group that you trust, like a trustworthy support system group.
Yes.
That will just like not only have your back, but kick you up the, kick you up the ass if you feel like going the wrong way.
Yeah, for sure. And I feel like, everyone goes through things in life, seasons in life where it makes you question things. It makes you look back and think like, why did this happen? What did this do? I mean, I got divorced in the middle of the pandemic on Zoom.
Wow.
Like it was this like life change. Yes.
What?
Divorce on Zoom in 2020 was a thing. And that was a major life-changing event for me. That was a major shift of like my circle of trust, my circle of support. And I think that's why for me, diving into the personal development instead of pointing fingers and being like, you're the reason why I'm depressed. You're the reason why I can't work. You're the reason this, like, okay, back up a second. Like, let's assess where that's coming from and let's kind of work through that. And I think that once you can actually take the time to dissect where you're at, who's around you, what you're going through, like that's where the real kind of progress and learning to pivot, like you mentioned, learning to pivot is not, I believe, is not something you can learn in every season. I think there are certain seasons that are too cloudy. They're too foggy. There's too much going on for you to be able to learn that lesson or to be able to learn that skill. But what's more important is that you learn that it's seasonal, and you learn that when it is the season, you gotta learn. You gotta take that for what it's worth instead. And hindsight's 2020, right? You can always
like life-changing things, right? Always those life-changing things that either force you to look down that road. But I mean,
hindsight is 2020. I have so many people who ask me, like looking back at my story, my personal life, my business life, I grew $1 million company and lost it in less than a year. And people look at me and they say like, if you could go back, would you change it? Would you do something different? And I sat with that for a really long time, because of course you want to jump to say like, hell yeah, I wouldn't have done that. I wouldn't have made that. But the reality that I came to was I would not be where I am today. I would not be the person I am today if I had not gone through those experiences. So no, I wouldn't change it. Right. But it takes time to like dig that deep. And be able to, do that. So, okay. So your career came first, and a crazy successful one at that. Now insert motherhood. So I can speak from my own experience that motherhood came in like a bat out of hell. Like it was a Mack truck. Like it was, I was not prepared for the amount of change that would be necessary to be able to keep both a human and a business alive. Like that, it's a lot harder than it sounds. So tell me a little bit about like the struggles that you faced in the beginning phases of, bringing motherhood into this life of already having a successful career. Like what were the struggles for you? And then like, how did you get through that?
I think if I'm completely frank and honest, it would be,
I like that. Be frank.
It would be the balance situation, right? Because when you've been working for so long, and I mean, like you said, like it does come at you, no matter if you wanted to be a mom or if you didn't want to be a mom, it happens an accident, whatever the case may be, you're never prepared for it, right? No matter how many books you can read or how many kids you babysat, like it's a whole different world, right? So that balance of juggling, being the mom and being or being the working mom, right? And having that both sides of your life fulfilled. I found that very challenging because
And being a wife. I mean, that's a whole, I mean, that's a whole nother.
It's a whole other scenario. And I had been doing my professional life so many more years than becoming a mom, right? Like I didn't become a mom until I was in my 40s. So I had that many more years of being independent, either on my own, doing my own thing, having no one to answer to. And then all of a sudden now I have this child and I'm responsible. I can't just go and do stuff. So balance was really key for me. I feel like I would get pangs of, when I'm home with my child, and obviously you want to spend all that time in the beginning stages, and I loved it. I will never regret any of that. But then you do get that pangs of, the work life, and if I'm with my child, work slips a little bit, or, it takes a back seat. But then when I'm out at work, I have somebody else with my child, and then you get that feeling of, well, they can never do it as good as me. So am I giving my kid misjustice here because I'm not there, and no one can do the mom role better than me? Learning to kind of like let go a little bit, having a support system that you've incorporated, right? I think really played a very big part of how I adapted. Like adapting was and that support system, whether it be, within your family, again, like, a neighbor, hired help, whatever, whatever that is, you need to be able to find that system, put systems in place and have a support system that helps you, so that, if I want to be with my kid, I have somebody at work to take care of things. And luckily for me, it being a family business, I had that. Or if I'm on the road and I'm doing showings, or I'm out, I have somebody with my child that has systems that I put in place to look after my child the way I want it to be, because the alpha female comes out.
I feel you, sister.
You gotta be doing it the way I want it, you know what I'm saying? So, I mean, I was lucky enough to have a hands-on hubby and a really great mother-in-law at the time that gave me that space and really allowed, did things the way I liked it. I mean, that really helped. So
yeah.
Balance is a big key, to be honest, for me. That was a big struggle. So once I honed in on that, I had my systems in place. It falls into place.
Yes. And you said something important that like really stuck with me, was like letting go. And I think that as the alpha females, we have a hard time letting go of control. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's something that we struggle with, because as business owners, we feel as though we have to be in control. We have to be able to control pretty much the entire aspect of that. And mom life is so much different. Like you can't control anything half the time. You don't know what the day is going to bring. So what would you say was like the biggest thing that helped you like get past that hurdle? Like what helped you start to let go?
I think
building the system, because that's what I would do too.
I'm all about I'm the kind of person that I need balance, right? And I need systems in place so I know what's going on. And again, the whole alpha female. So even if plan A didn't work, or, your child is just not being very responsive in one way, the way you want it, there's a plan B, there's a plan C. Okay, this doesn't work. I've got this going on. And make sure you have this bag, or make sure you have this going on, right? And so
are we color coded and like
ABCD and make sure it, repeat it back to me, the bullet. It's quite funny. Like I would have bullet points for my mother-in-law, this time is this time is this, do this, da 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 da. I mean, systems, man, like whether it's professional or personal systems, I need that for drive.
Definitely. I finally have someone in my life who is helping me build and implement systems in my professional life and my personal life, because I have a very creative brain. I have a very visual brain, and I have a very hard time building those. I can follow them for the most part, as long as they look pretty and they're color coded. But making them is definitely making them is where I struggle. And it took me a long time to even be willing to admit that, right? Because we want to be right. We want to believe that we can do it all. We want to believe that we have superpowers, right? But the biggest superpower you can have is being able to admit that you need help and that you can't do it all. And I think that I am so ready for society to do a better job of like allowing it to be okay to need help.
Yeah, I mean,
I have
a real love and hate relationship with the whole supermom phrase, right?
Yeah.
Because I mean, what does that really mean? She's a chick that's organized and got her systems in place. Not that she's doing it all. She's got other people helping her, or the right people helping her. That's why
she's struggling. She is hardcore struggling and will not admit that she's struggling, right? So there's two. There's probably a million more ways that you could, analyze that too. But I agree with you. I think that things like hashtags and things that are trending, I get them. I get why they exist.
It's a love and hate thing.
It's a double-edged sword. 100% it's a double-edged sword, because not only does it misrepresent things, a lot of the time it creates this extra pressure to live up to this societal meaning of what it means to be a supermom, right? Like, I can't fail. I can't rest, I can't, and all these things creates all this extra pressure. And so like I think that it's worth opening conversation about it, because I think that too many people feel the societal pressure on any of their thoughts. Like, are any of their thoughts real and genuine, or like how much percentage of their feelings and their thoughts and their opinions are actually affected by society and social media and what everybody else thinks? It's fascinating to me. How can you ever really know if, and I'm just as guilty, how can I ever know that my thoughts and opinions are genuinely mine and not affected by society?
Yeah.
I don't even know how I could label myself. I can't even give myself percentages, because obviously I'm in the marketing world. Obviously I'm in the social media world, and
we live it, right? I mean, no matter what, if you're a business person, whether you like it or not, you're in the social media world,
absolutely,
right? No matter what kind of business it is.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. So your son, he is in, how old is he? Is he in school now?
Yeah, he's a kindergartner. He's 6.
And that was like life-changing?
Yes. I mean, I think it gets, like, you hear it, right? When you're a new mom, you hear the whole concept of, oh, it gets easier, it gets easier. It literally does. I will take it. It does get easier.
It just takes 5 years.
Yeah, school starts and you have X amount of hours that you got, do your job. You can, you can concentrate on you. Do your job, whether it's looking after your personal well-being, all of that stuff, right? So it helps.
Yes, for sure. And I think that I know I can personally relate to the hallelujah. My son's in pre-K, so he's at he's at kinder care, but he's actually about to be going full-time starting in February, so that he can prepare, because his kindergarten, our district, is full-time, full week. And so we're trying to kind of just prepare him for that. And I'm over here like, yes, I can finally say that I can control my schedule 5 days a week. I can finally spread things out a little bit to be able to get my job done, to be able to get my life in order.
You're not working midnight. You're not working that's how it used to be, right? Like when they're little, when they're napping, you're fitting it, especially if you're an entrepreneur, you're fitting it in those hours where they're sleeping or whatnot, and you're burning the oil or each end. It's
and like we said about control, right? Yeah. That is now something I will more be able to control, because I have the school support system now. Like that's building this support system. And so I think that's just like, it's life-changing, it's game-changing. It's all
both of you, right? Like obviously your child needs it too. I mean, how much mommy and play days can he do? He needs he needs to be inspired and challenged in his ways too. So it works out for both of you.
Absolutely. He's thriving being in this classroom. You know, he's in there 3 days a week, and he's just totally thriving being there. And I think that that's something that, like, to be recognized, right? Like, you are doing what your child needs sometimes by putting them in a daycare or school or babysitting, because you're exposing them to life, right? Whereas if you keep everything as close to you as you can when they get older,
You want to do
it's
that
not
when
really
they're little, but it's not, A, it's not realistic, B, it's not helpful for either one of you, right? You both need your timeouts, and you both need to be a challenge and like get on with your life. So is yours you it's an only child?
Yes.
Same. So girl,
Yes.
they need it more. They need it
Yes.
more. Yeah.
Yes. And I've thought about that a lot, because, you know, sometimes I'll see friends with siblings, and I think to myself, God, I mean, that's nice. That's nice. And then other parts of me are like, I'm fine with friends being at school.
Same.
I give a huge nod to the mompreneurs who have multiple children, because I feel like I'm good. Like, I'm not sure I have any other ounces of like self to give. So obviously we're here today because of these support systems that allow us to do our jobs outside of being a mom, right? So what are you doing now, you know, that helps you keep that balance? So we talked about how you kind of got to that place where you've gained that balance, you figured out how to get that balance, but I want to know how you keep it, because I am the person that can figure it out and get that balance, and then the next week I'm back to square one. Like, how do you keep it as a part of your life?
Because I need to, right? Like when things start slipping, like, and they do, right? I mean, I'm not perfect, nobody's perfect. Like, there are times where, you know, you're pulled a little bit more this way, a little bit more that way. It's natural, it happens. And when I feel that happening, I don't like not being or in control as much as I can be, right? So I know, knowing what works for you. So I know I have to stick to some form of a system if I have to change that system up or whatever the case may be. And I need, for me, I'm all about balance. I can be a good mom and a good boss and all of that stuff, working woman, if I have balance in my life. So taking care of the mom aspect of my life, right? The wife aspect, the sister, the friend, the daughter, my own self-love, and having me time. Like, I'm all about planning, right? So I need to have time for all those aspects where I can feel, you know, recharged, rejuvenated. And again, like I said, the friend group, the people you hang around, the support system that you have, that will be like, oh girl, that's slipping, come on, let's get back on track, right? Like having people that, you know, keep you on your toes. For me, it's my siblings, it's my girl group, you know, and luckily enough, I have a great supporting husband. So it's having those people in your life and being honest and realistic with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a real, and knowing when things don't work and having to start, you know, trying something out new. So it's not necessarily that it's not sticking with what the same thing, but if something is changing, you need to pivot, you need to do something.
Movement. Even just continuing to move. Are you a like physical writer, like pen and pad type of person, or are you all electronic?
Nah, man, girl, I am old school. Like, I have my calendar right here next to me. It's like everything, pen and paper, Monday, ... Tuesday, ... And the funny thing is, my hubby is the same way too. I don't know if it's the 45 plus group that are like that or what, but I'm all about having it. Like, I need to write things down.
Sure.
Right. Then it sticks in my head, and then reviewing it in the morning, reviewing it at night. I have to do that. If I don't do that, I notice if I don't check in with that's where
yourself.
Shit hits the fan and things fall off. Me.
And your paper planner basically becomes one of your best friends, or becomes your assistant, because it is a place that you can trust to go back and tell you what you need to do. Like, totally. I love that. I wish I was more of a paper person. I am a paper person, but then I forget where I put that sheet of paper. I'm the paper
Oh,
person that like takes a piece of paper that's a scrap paper and like writes a list on it, and then I don't know what the hell happens to
oh,
the scrap
gotcha, gotcha.
paper.
So I'm that nerd that has the journal book that follows her wherever she goes. Yeah, it's like that nerd point 2.0 scenario.
Yeah, I used to have like a daily planner, and then I would come back to it and there would be 4-year-old scribbling all over it, and then I would
Oh,
just be mad. So I'm
no
definitely
way for you.
now more of a Google
Okay,
workspace person where I know I can access it everywhere I am.
everyone, yeah.
I know that Jackson won't touch it.
No, well, that's it. You know what works for you, right? And I think
Yeah.
that's the key. That's the key, like not lying to yourself and knowing what works for you.
Yeah.
Right?
And being willing to try things until you figure out what works for
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
Because I feel like that too, there's something to be said about that. You know, like the first thing you try isn't necessarily going to be what sticks with you,
Right.
but you have to be willing to try, right? You have to be willing to fail to
That's
succeed.
the tough lesson. That's the tough one.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, well, this has been an amazing conversation. We always at the end of our chats, one super important question that I ask everybody, obviously it's the backbone of this podcast.
Sure.
What does the word success mean to you?
Balance. In all aspects of my life, right? My personal and my professional. I need balance. So, and that gives me inner peace. So once I have inner peace, and the balance is there, I feel like I'm like really kicking it.
Yeah, for sure. Like when do you feel the most successful? Like what does a week look like for you that you can look back and think like, I had a really successful week? What does that look like for you?
That I went on showings, I was there for pickups for my kid, I was able to take him to some fun thing he wanted to do that week. We like always plan stuff to do cool with him. We try new things out. I get hubby time, and movie night with myself. So like filling in all those aspects. If I'm able to hit all those things, get some girl time in there with my girlfriends, that's a really cool week for me. If
Do you have
I'm
a board, like a checklist board that you can like go through every week?
it sounds really hilarious. I don't, funny enough, but I do have my planner of like things that I know I have to hit up, right? Like
Yeah.
especially with my kid and the social scene, right? So whether it's my kid or my friends or my hubby or myself, I gotta plan that in. So yeah,
Yeah.
if weeks gone by and I'm able to have a number of those in, I'm happy. That's a successful week for me.
That's amazing. I think so many people will just totally relate to a lot of this, and I'm sitting here like striving to be you, striving to be that person that
Oh,
not
you're doing
only
wonderful.
feels successful in both aspects, but can even develop that list of things that will make me feel successful that are not related to money. They're not related to awards or like specific tangible things, that reframing success to be more about the little things and not the big things, because the little things come together to create the big things. But without the little things, what are we,
I
right?
feel like you're already halfway there, right? Like you said, you had the company with the big bucks. And like for me, like being in the entertainment space and the media online, I've seen the big money and I've seen that lifestyle. And when you're around it, it really puts things in perspective of what really matters to you, what really jives to you, what makes you happy, like that whole inner peace scenario. What is that for you? Is it the money?
Yeah.
Is it family time? Is it the this? Is it a little bit of everything? And once you get that down, once you know what works for you,
For sure. And I feel like,
priority, right?
yeah. And I feel like, I was in my late 20s, early 30s when I built that successful company. And maybe it's my generation, maybe it's just my own mindset, but monetary numbers were absolutely something that we strived for to be successful. And in the moment, we damn well felt successful.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm in the real estate business, so it's all about numbers. So I get it. Like I'm not saying that, you know, money is just like down here. It's up there too.
Oh yeah.
I need enough to feel satisfied or be able to have the things
Yeah.
I want, but it's not the end all. Like I need,
Yes.
I need the balance. I need a little bit of everything.
Yes. And I feel like if I would go back, the one thing I would change would be to learn more about reframing success to be more wide range than to be just about a monetary value. Because like I said, hindsight is 2020. I can look back and say that when I was in the peak of my like revenue generating stream, I was probably the most miserable person I ever have been in my entire life. Right. So then you look back and you're like, well, that's worth assessing. Like,
yeah.
That's interesting. Okay. So I think this is great. I thank you so much for being here today to talk about this, because I know so many other women are out there struggling with juggling, being a mom and being an entrepreneur and all of those things. And I think they'll really be able to relate to a lot of the things that you're saying and be inspired by how you are working so much on that balance and how it works for you. So I know there's people out there like, oh my God, this is me. I need to figure this out. I'm super excited for that. If you have one piece of advice for these women on how to achieve that balance, or how to work towards that balance, what would your one piece of advice be?
I don't feel like you have to be an island, right? Like reach out, don't be afraid and don't be too proud. Like reach out for help. If you're struggling or you don't know which avenue to take or, how to go about things, just, suck it up and just ask someone that you trust. I think that's the biggest key out there. Is a lot of times, we're too afraid or we don't want to look weak or whatever the case may be, but just reaching out and that having that support system is key.
Yes, I love that. I love it. Monika, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm opening up this conversation. This has been amazing, even eye-opening for me, even inspiring for me as I sit here to go jot down all my shit and get my shit together. Monika, if listeners are totally vibing with you and they want more, maybe they want to chat, maybe they just want to follow your life. What's the best way that they can follow you or get in touch with you?
Oh, I'm an open book, man. You can follow me on all my socials. I mean, you'll see the mommy on there, the businesswoman on there. Follow me on my socials. It's my name, Monika Bhondy. You could just Google me that way. You can hit me up on my website, monikabhondy.com, or just email me, Monika@Publix Realty. Find me. I am easy to find. Just Google my name.
Yes, and I will leave all of her links in the show notes for you guys, so it will be super, super easy. If you're out and you're driving and you can't click on it right now, they will be in the show notes for you to come back to. So with that, Monika, thank you so, so much again. Everybody have a fabulous week. We will chat soon.
Thank you. Take care, guys.